Hello, viewers. Welcome back to another episode of the Indian Lawyer Legal Tips. Today, we are diving deep into something we hear about quite often in the news and legal discussions, the POCSO Act. To help us understand this better, we have with us an expert, Susheela Ram Verma, ma'am, a practicing lawyer at the Supreme Court of India. Ma'am, if I may begin, could you please explain what exactly the POCSO Act is and why is it brought into India?
POCSO Parichaya is an acronym for the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act 2012. It's a specialized legislation enacted by the Indian Parliament with the explicit objective of safeguarding children for the protection of children from various forms of sexual abuse, sexual harassment, and pornography. So it's a special law and probably the only law which has been formulated for the protection of children.
That's insightful, ma'am. So, what is the age criteria for the children mentioned under the POCSO Act?
The POCSO Act has an age criteria of children less than the age of 18 years, and this definition of child is consistent with all international conventions where a child is defined to be any person below the age of 18.
So, what are the offences that are encompassed under this Act, ma'am?
There are three types of acts that have been recognized by the Act. The first is penetrative sexual assault, the second is non-penetrative sexual assault, and the third is aggravated sexual assault. Now, when we say aggravated sexual assault, we mean that the child has been sexually assaulted by a person who is in a position of authority or command over the child, and that authority has been misused. For instance, police officers, armed forces personnel, public servants, teachers, doctors, relatives, etc. Now, sexual harassment has been defined under Section 11 of the Act and covers acts such as making sexual remarks, showing pornography, or other non-physical sexually suggestive conduct.
Is POCSO Act gender neutral?
Yes, Parichaya, the POCSO Act is gender neutral. Not only is it talking about taking the female and the male child in its jurisdiction, but it also talks about transgender. So I would say there is a very holistic approach, and it covers all children. It doesn't matter of which sex.
Okay, so what is mandatory reporting under the POCSO Act, ma'am?
Mandatory reporting under the POCSO Act means that if any person has seen an act being committed against a child which is deemed to be a sexual offense, that act must be reported. So it casts upon the observer two duties. One is a moral responsibility that yes, a child is being mishandled or misused or sexually abused. So there is a moral responsibility of reporting the accused. And the second is a legal responsibility, because if you fail to do so, you can be punished under the law with imprisonment as well as with fine. Now, there is one thing I wanted to point out, Parichaya, while we are discussing this, that although POCSO is a very important act that deals with children, but POCSO cannot work in isolation. It's a special law, undoubtedly, but it has to work in sync with certain other laws. And in this particular case, with the Code of Civil Procedure, which has now been replaced with a new law, the IPC, which has again been replaced with a new law, and then, of course, you have the Juvenile Act 2015. And I would say one of the most important laws that POCSO has to work with, that is the Information Technology Act. And when we say Information Technology Act, we refer specifically to cases that involve child pornography or sexual online abuse. And there is a section 67B of the Act which specifically deals with the publishing or transmitting of material depicting children in sexually explicit acts. And in such a case, the IT Act along with the POCSO Act are in tandem when it comes to filing a report.
Okay. So, ma'am, under this Act, how is the confidentiality of a victim's identity maintained?
Yes, this is extremely important because a child cannot be exposed. To begin with, the child is traumatized, probably also very scared. And if a child's details are exposed, especially to the media, which very often is merciless when it comes to reporting, so the child would actually get victimized even further. So there is a duty cast upon society in general that the name, the address, the photograph, the family details, the school, the home details, etc., should be very safely guarded, and the child should not be exposed unnecessarily. This is for two reasons. One, of course, the social stigma, and the second is the risk of the child being re victimized for similar kinds of offenses.
Okay. So, ma'am, how are the investigation and trial procedures done under, POCSO Act per
It's
se?
nearly the same as other laws. Like there would be a recording of the statements of the child in a police station and with a trusted adult present. Apart from that, there would be special courts which have been specifically trained to handle issues pertaining to children, which will take the testimony. There will be certain requirements that the court has to follow, such as ensuring that the child enters from a separate entrance and not from the same entrance as the accused, or that the child is screened from the accused so that the child is protected. But more than anything else, there are dedicated special courts under the POCSO Act in which the judges have been trained in such a manner that they're sensitive to the trauma of a child victim.
Okay. So, ma'am, under this act, who tries the offences?
Generally, it's the Court of Sessions, which is the designated special court, and this court has been trained to go into expeditious trials. They also have judges who have specialized expertise in handling sexual abuse cases. There is a great amount of focus that this court gives to POCSO cases, and I would say the most important part would be that they are child-friendly courts, and as such, the atmosphere in the court would be such that the child would be comfortable.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. So, ma'am, can you please explain us what is the best interest of the child policy according to the POCSO Act?
Parichaya, actually, the best interest of the child principle is something that is followed in many types of laws pertaining to children, like adoption or maintenance, or even Guardians and Wards Act. The basic principle is that whenever a child is involved in any matter, the court must look at only one thing, that is only one primary and one paramount consideration, and that is the best interest of the child must be taken into consideration. The courts feel that if this is done, then the child would not suffer and would be able to develop in a more holistic manner. This particular principle is settled law now because there have been several cases where the Supreme Court has ruled on the best interests of the child.
Okay. So, ma'am, what is the support and assistance for children, like all the child victims under the POCSO Act?
There are several types of assistance. These have been mentioned in the screen below, and basically they go from legal assistance to counseling and psychological support to giving health and medical support to giving educational support, and basically to create a safe and supportive environment for the child and to ensure the child is protected from hardship and re-victimization. In some cases, there is also compensation.
Okay, ma'am. So, ma'am, could you please tell us what kind of punishments are prescribed for offences under this act?
Yes, I think to make it simpler, we'll just ask our editor to list it in the slides below so that people can see for themselves what are the offences and what are the punishment. Now, Pari, to make this a more holistic discussion, I think we should immediately go to some case laws, cases which have been decided by the Supreme Court of India as well as high courts. where issues pertaining to children have been considered. The first case is Alok Srivastava versus Union of India 2018, which deals with guidelines for trial under POCSO. Basically, the Supreme Court has set down certain terms and conditions that has to be followed by special courts when they are trying matters under POCSO, and this is in order to ensure that the child does not suffer. The court has also said that the high courts must supervise the progress of matters under POCSO so that there is a speedy amount of justice delivered. Apart from this, a special task force has to be formed by the Director General of Police who can guarantee that the investigations are conducted in a fair and free manner. Now, let us dwell upon another case, that is Satish Ragre versus State of Maharashtra. It's a 2021 case, again a very important case, in which the Supreme Court, a bench of 3 judges, decided what was important when deciding a POCSO matter. The court held that sexual intent and not skin to skin contact is the key in POCSO assault cases. That is, the act of touching the sexual part of the body or any other act involving physical contact, if it is done with sexual intent, would amount to sexual assault within the meaning of Section 7 of the POCSO Act. Now, this has become a guideline that everyone follows when they are trying cases. So, instead of skin to skin, it is basically the intention. Then there's another important case, Ramesh Tukaram Vavekar versus State of Maharashtra. This is a Bombay High Court judgment, 2022, in which the victim had been raped and she became pregnant. She produced a baby, but after producing the baby, within 4 days, she passed away. So the Bombay High Court was of the opinion that not only was the mother victimized, even the child was victimized, and the court therefore directed that the accused must pay a good amount of compensation to the child who was born out of the illicit act of the accused, so that the child got some kind of compensation. Now, Parichaya, I thought let us deal on one of the most controversial matters when it comes to POCSO, and that is Asharam Bapu case, which is Asharam Bapu versus State of Rajasthan, again 2023. In this case, in 2013, a 16-year-old girl accused Asaram Bapu of having attempted to rape her. The girl was reportedly sent to Asaram Bapu because they claimed that she had some evil spirits surrounding her and only the great Baba could cure her. When she went into his chambers, he misbehaved with her. Luckily, the girl was bold and her parents were supportive, so she raised a hue and cry. The police investigated into the matter, and apart from levying the normal charges under the IPC of rape, they also levied charges under POCSO. Asaram Bapu and his lawyers tried a lot to get these POCSO sections removed because of the POCSO section, he was unable to get the bail. But no matter how much he tried, till the Supreme Court, all bail applications were rejected. Finally, he was given life imprisonment for the remainder of his natural life. However, sadly, in January 2025, the Gujarat High Court has granted Asaram Bapu bail because of health conditions and that he is out on treatment. This has obviously petrified the victim as well as her parents, because during the trial, Asuram's hoodlums had actually killed a number of witnesses in order to ensure that that there was nobody to give evidence against Asaram.
So, thank you so much, ma'am. The entire conversation has been really helpful, and I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot today. If you found this episode helpful, do share it with your friends and family, and stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, take care and stay legally aware. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Parichaya. I think we did a good episode.